Alright folks, you can stop pretending you love hammerlocks and hurricane ranas now. You are in a safe place where it's okay to admit that you prefer the entertainment side of sports entertainment, and that you would rather watch a rip-roaring wrestling wedding than some 5-star technical classic. Weddings have been a staple of the genre for years, and nobody really does them quite like WWE. Since I will probably die a handsome bachelor, I thought I would see what all the fuss is about by revisiting some of the best. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 best WWE weddings ever. If anyone has any reason not to watch this video, speak now or forever hold your peace, you marks. Number 10, Teddy Long and Crystal Marshall. Usually, Teddy Long would be found proposing a tag team match, or that someone go one-on-one with The Undertaker, player. But in June 2007, following a whirlwind romance, he was down on one knee proposing marriage to Crystal Marshall. She said yes, and the big day was set for the September 21st episode of SmackDown, which coincidentally was the season premiere of the show. It was a grand occasion, with everyone from Vince McMahon and Hornswoggle to Butch Reed and Balls Mahoney on hand to witness the festivities, which began with Crystal tripping over her own dress when walking up the stairs. And it just got wackier from there as Jillian Hall attempted to interject and was carried out screaming, before the Godfather showed up and took most of the guests away for a ride on the Ho train. Still, nothing was going to stop Long and Marshall from tying the knot. Well, nothing except a heart attack, that is. The general manager was stricken before being taken out on a stretcher and placed into a coma. Honestly, the lengths some men will go to in order to avoid saying I do. Number 9, Lita and Kane. Kane loved Lita, and if she wasn't going to be with him, then he was simply going to have to beat up her boyfriend Matt Hardy every single week until she relented. After being impregnated with the Big Red Machine's demon seed, Lita's hand in unholy matrimony was put up for grabs in a match between Kane and Hardy at SummerSlam, which the Devil's favorite demon won, leading to the wedding from hell on Raw. It was utterly surreal, with little people running about and Mayor Jacobs rocking up in a white tux, Lita irking her future hubby by wearing a black dress, and Kane referring to her as his property, while Trish Stratus acted as an unwanted bridesmaid in an outfit that will do things to an impressionable young mind. And Willie. Matt Hardy attempted to hijack the ceremony and run off with his lady, but the Devil's favorite demon summoned the power of pyro and stopped them in their tracks. Matt then took a ride off the stage before the union of Kane and Lita was made official. And just look how happy he is. Number 8, AJ Lee and Daniel Bryan. The love quadrangle saga between AJ Lee, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan and Kane was long and complex, with Lee jumping back and forth between the three before deciding that the straight-edge superstar was her man and proposing to him on Raw. D-Bry wasn't having any of that though, but it looked as though AJ wanted Punk even if he didn't want her, before slapping him and then Bryan for good measure. 2 handsome beefcakes at your mercy and you slap them in the face? Some people. Anyway, her and Bryan later reconciled and he proposed once more. This time her answer was yes, 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 and the two planned to wed at Raw 1000. It was a relatively restrained affair, with former manager the Reverend Slick drafted into the fold to oversee the proceedings. But this is WWE, and nothing, least of all weddings, ever goes off without a hitch. While it looked like AJ was saying yes to Bryan, she clarified that she was in fact saying yes to another man who made a proposal to her, Vince McMahon, who earlier that night had offered her the Raw GM spot. Bryan took the rejection very well though, it has to be said. Number 7, Al Wilson and Dawn Marie. SmackDown in the second half of 2002 was one of the most celebrated times in the Blue Brand's history. Led by Paul Heyman, the show featured the much vaunted SmackDown 6 having killer matches week in and week out, while the likes of Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker prowled in the main events. When people rave about this era, they tend to gloss over a lot of the dross, including the interminable feud between Dawn Marie and Tori Wilson, which centered around Dawn's love of Tori's clueless father Al. Unlike many other wrestler family members, this was Tori's shoot dad, and I'm sure they were both super comfortable with the whole tawdry storyline. It all led to an engagement, and after some threats to call the whole thing off, their in-ring wedding. Naturally, they both stripped to their undies for the occasion, and it was obvious that Al had been stuffing in preparation for being in his Y-Dogs on camera. Not that I was looking, or anything like that. Alright, I looked. Things surprisingly went off without a hitch, and they got married as planned. The honeymoon, however, was murder. Number 6, Edge and VICKIE GUERRERO. After Teddy Long went to sleep for a bit following his disastrous wedding to Crystal Marshall, Vickie Guerrero stepped up from his assistant to become the full-time general manager. She became a tyrannous heel and shacked up with Edge, who may have had ulterior motives like keeping the World Heavyweight title safe at all costs. With Vickie's aid, he formed La Familia, and the group ran roughshod over SmackDown as their relationship bloomed and they got engaged. Despite briefly calling the whole thing off, the wedding was set, and with a popular man like Edge involved, who had zero enemies, how could things go wrong? The July 18th, 2008 episode of SmackDown saw the two get married, have their first dance, toss the bouquet, receive the traditional wedding present from Slim Jim, and at the end of the show, come out to once again profess their love for one another. That was the cue for Triple H to enter the picture and reveal secret footage of the Ultimate Opportunist locking lips with his and Vickie's wedding planner, played by Alicia Fox. Vickie was furious and went on to punish Edge by booking him against The Undertaker, though the two later reconciled before Guerrero started necking on with your Uncle Paul. Number 5, Stephanie McMahon and Test. Fans perhaps weren't so surprised to see the game spoil Edge and Vickie's big day because the man has previous. Triple H was on hand to put a sledgehammer through the nuptials of Test and Stephanie McMahon back in late 1999. I should stress that he didn't literally put a sledgehammer through them, and there were in fact no sledgehammers involved. You can't be too careful when the cerebral assassin is involved, you see. Hunter showed up and famously played camcorder footage of him secretly marrying a supposedly drugged/unconscious Steph at a Las Vegas drive-through chapel. That was certainly creepy, as was him telling an irate Vince McMahon that he and his daughter, who remember was drugged/unconscious, had consummated the marriage. And it was a kick in the nuts for Test, who had to fight hard to win over the McMahons, including beating Shane in a brutal love her or leave her street fight. The wedding episode was sensational Attitude Era television, and a defining moment in the careers of Trips and Steph. Before long, the McMahon-Helmsley faction would be the dominant force on WWE TV, while poor Test had to hang around with a man called Prince Albert. Number 4, Edge and Lita. The storyline romance between Kane and Lita, as well as the real-life one between Lita and Matt Hardy, was undone by that sneaky bar steward, Edge. After news of the Edge-Lita affair broke, WWE decided to put them together on screen, with their rated-R romance becoming one of the hottest things since the Spice Girls. The Money in the Bank winner came out dressed like a pirate, while Lita entered the arena dressed like a... sometimes there are simply no words. This is not one of those times, however, as I have several words I could use to describe the former women's champion's wedding dress. Melons, for example. Knockers is another. They played a video of their hedonistic escapades and made out for a while, before Lita said that she was proud to be in love with Edge, even if it made her the slut of the century. Yes, somebody was actually paid to come up with that line, why do you ask? They then hilariously trolled the fans with a Matt Hardy tease before Kane made his objections known by bursting through the canvas, running the couple off, trashing the set, and tombstoning the priest. Number 3, Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. When Triple H returned from his torn quad in early 2002, he did so as the biggest babyface who ever did a baby, or something like that. His kayfabe wife, on the other hand, was a dastardly heel, and the dynamic was much different than it was during the McMahon-Helmsley peak a couple of years prior, with Steph being too clingy while the game just wanted to do his thing and pedigree his enemies. Tensions were high and divorce appeared to be on the horizon before the billion-dollar princess revealed that she was pregnant, and they decided to renew their vows instead. Minutes before they were due to renew, however, it was revealed that Steph's pregnancy was in fact a ruse, with Linda McMahon explaining to her son-in-law that her daughter was lying. So Triple H entered the schmaltzy affair with him and everyone watching knowing full well that his missus was pulling a fast one. He kept the facade going until the last moment, where he let her know what he really thought about it and declared that their marriage was over before destroying Vince and the set. She took the whole thing in good spirits, it has to be said. Number 2, Billy and Chuck. After climbing to the top of SmackDown's tag scene, Billy and Chuck realized that they looked so good to each other and wanted to be partners both in the ring and out. Chuck proposed life partnership and Billy accepted, much to the displeasure of those in the arena and homophobes around the world. While not strictly a wedding, the two would have a commitment ceremony that proved to be controversial for a number of reasons. The ceremony itself was very well done, with Billy, Chuck, their personal stylist cum manager Rico, and SmackDown GM Stephanie McMahon McMahon all playing their parts well. Not even an ill-timed appearance from The Godfather could derail things too much until Billy got cold feet and exposed the whole thing as a publicity stunt gone wrong. Then the Priest was unmasked as Eric Bischoff in some very convincing prosthetics before 3-minute warning hit the scene and wiped out Billy, Chuck, and Steph. It all made for great television, but the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, who had worked with WWE on the storyline under assurances that the thing would be handled tactfully, were furious at the swerve, and rightly so. Number 1, Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. Wrestling weddings make for great television, but very few are able to headline a freaking pay-per-view. Such was the power of Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth, who rekindled their romance at WrestleMania 7 and planned or were booked to get hitched in the main event of SummerSlam. The match made in heaven, as it was dubbed, was a classy affair, with Liz looking just lovely and the Macho Man looking, well, like Macho Man. Did he take the First Lady of Wrestling to be his wife? Ooh yeah! A kiss and some confetti later, and that was it. A rare wrestling wedding that didn't completely descend into madness. But then came the reception. Again, it was a classy affair with singing, speeches, cake, a bouquet toss, and all that other stuff people force themselves to enjoy during wedding receptions until an uninvited guest arrived. As the happy couple were opening gifts, a snake jumped out of one of the boxes. Moments later, The Undertaker smashed an urn on Savage's skull while Jake Roberts threatened Liz. It took Sid Justice, a best man if I've ever seen one, to save the day by wielding a chair.